Recording in progress.
Morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. It's Paul Yoakum with FindMojo, and I'm joined here by my colleague Lance.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here.
We're coming to you live from the FindMojo studios today. We're excited about our new t-shirts, as well as our backdrop. Life is short, love your work. Just a friendly reminder that we want to let everybody know, hey, we don't have a lot of time on this planet. Let's do something that we love. So,
and you know what? Speaking of good things, back to our t-shirts. You know what I love about our t-shirts besides the stylish logo?
They're comfortable.
They are comfortable. They're tight in the right spots. They're loose in the right spots.
In my case, they're tight everywhere, but that's a different story.
And whatever, man. Whatever.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us and taking time out of your busy schedules today. We've got a fun and exciting little webcast for you today. We're going to talk about 3 dimensions that most people are familiar with when it comes to really trying to find out who we are. So today we're going to talk about personalities, strengths, and motivators. And these are 3 areas that we as individuals look at to try to figure out what drives us and who we are and how we interact. But also, these are 3 core areas that organizations use and leaders try to use to help get more out of their people. So we'll look at that as well today.
I love this. I've been looking forward to this for weeks.
You know, we got a really good turnout. We got a really good group. We got people from all over the globe, people from as far as New Zealand that have registered, Europe. So
I love it.
It's a pretty interesting topic. So let's jump in. And first of all, let's just start by saying, you know, it's important for us to know who we are. All of us are on this journey to try to find out who we are and what drives us and you know, basically what can bring us joy and happiness in life. And so even the greatest minds that have ever walked the planet have thought about this, right? The book, the Tao Te Ching stated, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Of course, the classic quote from Socrates, know thyself. I always thought that was Shakespeare, but Shakespeare's actually was in Hamlet when he was saying, this above all, to thine own self be true, right? So
I love those.
We want to know who we are and really, you know, so that we can get the most out of life, right? Most out of our work.
That's right.
Now, when I go into Google and I put in, how do we get to know ourselves? I'm rewarded immediately in less than a second, Lance, with over 507 million results.
It would take you a minute to get through all those.
A few, yeah. So that's a pretty lofty task, okay? It's also a pretty broad question. But so let's boil this down. Let's make this simple for our session today, okay? Today we're going to look at 3 commonly used dimensions, things that, you know, are often used in the workplace. And we want to also address this from the perspective of how does it relate to employee engagement and employee motivation, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a leader, I'm on this call, how do I use what I know about a person to really get the most out of them? And not just from a productivity perspective, but to help them become fulfilled and happy, right?
Yeah. Well, what we found too is too many people kind of guess or assume as well. And a lot of organizations use all sorts of different types of assessments, or at least an assessment, but it still leaves a lot to be understood and discovered.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And we'll show that firsthand. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to try to boil this down to 3 areas. Now, there's a myriad of areas and different things that we can look at, but really we want to answer 3 questions. First is we're going to look at things from the lens of personality. You know, who am I? How am I wired? How do I interact with others, right? Who am I? You know, that's a big, important dimension.
Yeah.
Okay. Second, we're going to look at strengths. What am I good at? What are my talents? And again, these are 2 common areas where organizations and leadership development crews and people try to assess these things to help people. We're going to also look at a 3rd dimension, which is near and dear to us, but the lens of motivators. What am I passionate about? Okay. And not only are we going to look at these individually, we're going to look at them, how they interact, where they intersect, right?
Yeah.
And where there's things that are overlap, but things that are also unique.
Could we call these 3 maybe the trifecta?
The trifecta.
Okay.
Yeah. I like that. Now, and let's be clear, there are other great areas. You know, there's tools to measure emotional intelligence, how we behave, right? You know, love languages, right? How we communicate. Yeah. There's a myriad of different predictive tools and things out there. But let's focus for today on these 3 because these are common ones that most everybody's familiar with. So let's start, Lance, with personalities, okay? And answering the question of excuse me, who am I? So what do we know about personalities? Well, personalities are really our blueprint to individuality. And where this originated from was a tool called the Big Five personality test, right? And it looked at our personality is made up of these kind of 5 dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, right? And it really is talking about, in social situations, how do we behave? You're extroverted, I'm extroverted. We don't get anything done because we're talking all the time, right?
That happens.
But in other situations, I can be a little more introverted, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on the situation, you know?
Yeah.
And we as extroverts, we have people that work for us who are more introverted, and sometimes we can overwhelm them. Like our developer, we've got all these fun and crazy ideas, and he's very pragmatic and very the way he approaches his things in a scientific manner, so to speak.
Yeah.
We get along great because we know this about each other, right?
That's right. And he asks us kindly to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah. His favorite phrase is, let me make sure I understand it, right?
Yeah.
So,
And it's a good one. I'm always glad he asked.
yeah. These personalities, these are traits that can help leaders and us predict reactions, tendencies, and choices. Basically, how are we going to interact? Okay. So companies all over the place have people take personality assessments, both pre-screening as well as while they're in the job,
Yeah.
just to see, how are people wired, right? Here's the thing that most people don't realize is that our personalities are largely hardwired and formed into who we are when we're children. Between the time we're 8 to 12 years old, we kind of are who we are. Now, that doesn't mean our personalities can't different and people can't fake it in different situations. But for the most part, we are who we are when we're younger, right? And our personalities don't change much over time, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk. Speaking of personality, there's a number of great tools out on the market, right? And a lot of you might be familiar with these, like Myers-Briggs, DISC, Color Code, a myriad of others, right? And maybe you've used them in your organization or with your team. Great tools, right? Let's look at a common one, DISC, okay? Now, when you think about DISC has these 4 dimensions, the DISC: dominant, influential, complement, and steady. Compliant, not complement.
I knew what you meant.
You know what I meant, okay? So I took this, and I'm a high I with a secondary D. So people say, oh, you're the life of the party. You like to joke and have fun, right? And stuff like that. But I also like to get things done.
Yeah.
And I kind of like to be in control and in charge.
That nails you.
Right?
100% you.
I don't know what your results were last time that you took this here, Lance, but where did you fall on the spectrum?
I was high S with a lower D.
Lower D.
It's been a while since I've looked at it. But
It'd be interesting to see that, And so, Lance is really more of the even keel. Steady really describes you. It's not ever as bad as you think it is. It's never as good as you think it is. Lance just kind of, he doesn't get rattled in situations. So
usually
I appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. All right. So anyway, just kind of wrapping that up, DISC is a common tool, and not that we're, shilling for DISC or that we get any sort of, if any of you sell DISC and want to send us a referral fee, great. So let's look at our second dimension. Here we're talking about strengths, okay? When we talk about strengths, we're asking the question, what am I good at? What are my talents? Now, strengths are our talents, right? But what's interesting is strengths can be developed with practice, right?
Absolutely.
Or strengths can be something that we're just innately good at. We're kind of, quote unquote, born with it.
Yeah.
But they don't change a whole lot throughout our lives either,
Yeah.
Certainly if there's something you're good at by practicing and you stop practicing, you can become less good at it. But strengths are, you're a naturally good communicator. Or, I think of my children. They all have different strengths. My daughter is super good at math. I don't know where she gets it from. It's not me. My younger son is super creative and can draw well, and he's terrible at math. Yeah. So they have strengths, different strengths, right? And the same goes for us in the workplace. In fact, I'll have Lance tell a story here in just a minute about somebody that we know who's really good at something, but doesn't always enjoy it. So our strengths are important, and here are some common, tools that organizations use from a strengths assessment perspective. Most everybody knows StrengthsFinder, had 30 million people take it. Others of you stand out. It's a great tool from Marcus Buckingham, or core strengths, right? And essentially they help us just understand what we're good at. So let's take a deeper dive into this and let's look at strengths like we did with DISC, because this is a commonly used one, right? So here's kind of an output of what strengths look like. They've got these 4 dimensions similar to DISC. Executing, am I good at getting things done, right? Influencing from a social perspective, relationship building, and strategic thinking, analytical, right? I'm good at ideation. And in some cases, you might notice, these map to personality in some ways, right?
There's some similarities.
I mean, you think about, if I'm a high I might naturally have some strengths in influencing relationship building.
Absolutely.
If I'm a high D, maybe executing, right? So there's some definite overlap here, okay? Now, however, I just want to take a kind of a detour here, because we're going to go into the third dimension in just a moment. The third dimension sounds like we're in the Twilight Zone, right? When we talk about personality and strengths, that's what most people use. Most people think that's the be-all, end-all. But our research has shown that just because you're good at something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll love it, right?
See that all the
every day,
yeah.
every day.
Every day.
So I'm going to pull up a quick video here from the famous tennis player Andre Agassi, where he's talking about how he was really, really good at tennis, but he hated it.
Yeah.
He absolutely hated it, even though he was really good at it. So while I'm pulling that up, Lance, can you think of a situation or an example, maybe it's personal, of something that you're good at? In fact, while you're thinking of that, everybody on the session today, take out a piece of paper, and I want you to think of something that you're good at but you don't enjoy doing, and write down what that is.
Yeah.
So while you're pulling that up, Lance, while I'm pulling that up, maybe share an example.
It was really interesting, because I remember early on when I first joined the culture, or when I joined FindMojo, about over 8 years ago. We were working with an organization, and one of the ladies was one of the leaders. She was fantastic at what she did. She would handle crises for her organization, and they would always call on her to do it because she was so good at it, but she hated it. And in fact, as we were starting to have a couple conversations after working with them for a few weeks, she said, you know what, I hate this, and they always come to me, and I'm thinking I'm out of here. And it was really enlightening to me to understand that she was good at it, but hated it. Yeah.
Well, she's not alone. Let's watch this clip here from Andre Agassi after he wrote his recent autobiography. He was on the Ellen Show talking about specifically how he was really good at tennis but didn't enjoy it. He also talks about, I didn't know this, he dated Barbara Streisand.
Oh,
and he talked about how she was amazing at singing, but did not like to perform live. Yes.
I'm actually not good at singing, but I don't like.
That's called a hobby.
Yes.
All right.
You talk about hating tennis. You talk about that you've hated the sport, which is shocking to people that you hated it.
Yeah, well, it is. It was shocking to me. When I retired, I turned a hard lens on myself and realized that, tennis was never something I chose. I think we all have conflicts in our life and contradictions, and it was so apparent to me now looking back on my life, just the pressure I lived with as a young boy. I internalized a lot, and then I found myself in a life I never chose. But also, too, when I was 27 years old, I made a determination that I was going to take ownership of my life, and for the first time in my life, I was actually going to choose tennis. I was going to attach new meanings to old tasks. How many millions of people live in a life that, do something they hate, yet they find reason to do it? And when I took that ownership, tennis started to give me back a lot. It gave me my school in Las Vegas. Well, she was a dear friend of mine and still is, and she was actually part of this process of, helping me, being one of the first readers, figuring this all out. But, really the thing that I admired in her, or at least connected with, one of the things was that here's a person who was great at something that they hated. I mean, she hated singing live. She didn't do it for 25 years, and you just I saw it, and I was attracted to that because I recognized, my life wasn't a lie. My life was a constant pursuit for the truth.
All right. Hopefully everybody was able to hear that. I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to our slides here. Let's pull this back up here. Pretty interesting to hear, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Certainly this is important to us. Okay. Now, that brings us to our last and third dimension. Now, this one we're a little bit closer to.
This is my favorite one.
These are all like our children. We have our favorites, right? So motivators, this really answers the question, what am I passionate about? What drives me? What do I enjoy? And again, we're looking at this purely from a workplace perspective, although many of these concepts are universal enough in nature that they apply to us in our lives, right? So our motivators really are the inner drive. They're unique fundamental drivers that we all share in common. We've actually identified 23 of them. And as we go through life, Lance, what's really interesting is our motivators can change.
Absolutely.
Have your motivators changed?
They have changed.
So something that might be important to a person, some have, right? Yeah. What might be important to a person today may not be as important 6 months from now or a year from now, right?
That's right.
So unlike personalities and strengths, our motivators can change and change often. And so it's important to kind of keep reassessing that. Now, when it comes to tools out on the market, there's a number of tools that might assess motivation. We're again, we like our own, okay? We call it the GOAT. So many of you on this call have taken the motivators assessment. If you haven't, we can help you with that. So
none that goes deep as ours.
That's true. Like, for example, I think, take DISC, not to knock on DISC. DISC is a phenomenal tool, but DISC has one paragraph that talks about motivation, right?
Right.
And so the questions it's not geared to measure that. The motivators assessment has 100 questions that is specifically on what's most important to you right now in your work.
And a 40-plus page report.
Yes, very detail-oriented. So let's just talk a little bit about that. We created this tool based on science. We looked at a 10-year research study that's still ongoing on workplace motivation. It's the largest ever conducted. It comprised more than 1 million adults, working adults from around the globe. And we took this data to our team of organizational psychologists, clinical psychologists, PhDs, folks a lot smarter than me, okay? You might recognize some of them. Here's actually the research team. So Dr. Gene Greaves and Dr. Travis Bradbury, the founders of Talent Smart and the brains behind the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 assessment, if you've ever taken that one. They've created tools and assessments for Blanchard and DDI. So they've got a really awesome team that really looked at this from a scientific perspective. And then we also coupled that with the research that had been done by two of our friends and partners, Chester Elton and Adrian Gostick, multiple-time New York Times best-selling authors, right? Writers of The Carrot Principle, All In.
Amazing.
Books that everybody loves. So this team is really legit, right? And so what they came up with was this, they answered these 3 questions. What's most important to me in my work? Can we figure that out? What factors increase and decrease a person's motivation? And lastly, what makes a person want to quit a job?
You think those questions are important?
Yeah. Okay, if you're a leader here and you manage people, could you answer these questions on behalf of yourself and B, others? Probably not.
Yeah.
At least not to the level at which this information will be provided to you, right? So here's our output. So you can see this is similar in a lot of ways to what a personality or strengths assessment would give you. We've got these 23 common motivators, and you can see how they bubble up into these 5 different identities. We've got achievers, people who are driven to get things done. They set ambitious goals. We've got builders, people who are driven by relationships with others, developing others, helping everyone to become a leader, service, friendship, right? Caregivers are social creatures who empathize and communicate well. They want work-life balance. We've got our reward-driven folks, people who care about more intrinsic related motivators, things like money and prestige and recognition, getting credit for the work that they do. And last, we've got thinkers, right? People who are motivated by creativity and learning and variety. They don't like bureaucracy. So it's just a different lens in which we view kind of the way we approach our work. Now, here in just a second, I'm going to show you how these all map together, and I'm going to use my own results as a way to show that.
Do you remember what I am?
Lance is a caregiver.
That's correct.
Do you remember what I am?
You are...
Because mine's changed.
Yeah,
mine's changed.
Caregiver.
Mine's changed 3 times in the last 2 years.
And now you are you just barely did this. Now you are...
So I was a caregiver.
An achiever.
I was a caregiver, then I was an achiever.
Yeah.
I'm not an achiever.
Oh, or thinker.
A thinker, yeah.
That's right.
We would have kept going until you got
Yeah. Set up more chances, right?
Right. Yeah, prior to the pandemic, for me, it was all about coming to work and having a good time and family, work-life balance, right? Empathy was low, but I had those other 2 high. And I always joked, hey, it's not that I'm not empathetic, it's just I don't care about people, right? But then during the pandemic, it was really stressful, and we changed. We launched FindMojo, completely rebranded the company, and it was all about getting things done. And a lot of my motivators changed.
Those drove you.
Those drove me.
Got you out of bed.
And now that we're kind of off and running here, it's all about autonomy and creativity for me, right?
When you get fun back up as a top motivator, I'll welcome.
It's still on the top. It's still on the top, right? But that's a good point, right? Some of your top motivators can stay the same, but the way the middle moves can totally change who you are. So let's put it all together, okay? Let's see if we can bring this all home and make sense of how we can get a clear picture of who we are, right? Alignment's the key. Now, a lot of you on this call have probably used one of these personality assessments, right? So that's a dimension. Some of you have used strengths assessments. Maybe you used both. That's a dimension. You can see that there's overlap. Motivators kind of complete this. They're not meant to replace. None of these is meant to replace the other. It's really meant to give us a clear picture of who we are. So let me just walk you through my results.
So let me say this too.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Like, oftentimes when we come in, some of these organizations have used a strengths and or a personality assessment. And when we show them the motivators assessment, they say, you know what? That's what's been missing for us.
Yeah.
We needed that. That fills in the gap and shows us what actually gets our people out of bed in the morning. What gets them excited.
Yeah. Yeah, we work with a lot of coaches Strengths has a great network of coaches, and so does DISC for that matter, as I'm sure some of these other tools do. And they're always looking for kind of what's that next arrow in the quiver?
Yeah.
Or quiver in the arrow, as I always mess it up and say. So let me walk you through my results, okay? And these are pretty recent here. So let's look at my DISC results. As I mentioned earlier, my top is I'm influential, I'm a high I, I'm a secondary D. When it comes to strengths, you would think, oh, he's also going to be influential. And that is secondary, but my number one strength is the way I have enough of those strengths that talk about relationship building. Okay? But if you look at what goes into relationship building, it's not what drives me. Like, I can do it, but I'm not a very empathetic person.
I didn't want to say anything.
I know. But when it comes to motivators, I'm a thinker, an achiever, and caregiver. So let's look how these line up. Okay? Well, my influential personality, if you look at what that entails and involves as it relates to motivators, it does map to strengths. There is some of that maps to relationship building. But when it comes to that, when strengths and personalities come to my motivators, it aligns up with what's third, believe it or not.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah. It's not that I can't do it. It's just, it's not what excites me, right?
I don't even know you anymore.
You thought you knew me, okay? And we work together every day. Now, my dominant personality does map to my second motivator, which is achiever. So there is some commonality there, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at my number one motivator, thinker, it's things like variety and autonomy and creativity. I just assume not socialize with other people when I'm working.
Yeah.
I want to get things done, but I like to do I like to build these webinar decks. I like to do videos and things like that that don't really have to do with interacting with other people. So the reason I bring this up is because it just truly illustrates the point that, you know what? These different dimensions are all important. Now, there is synergy, there is overlap, but for the most part, there are some things that are out of alignment. It's not a bad thing, right? But, it just goes to show so many of the people that we talk to think that they know and they don't until they finally get into this.
That's right. Remember that example where some person's assistant took their motivators assessment because they thought they knew him?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Always ask in our training classes, like, how many people found something that was confirming in their assessment results? Most everybody raises their hand. I said, did anybody find something that was surprising? And people will find this, surprise, something's lower than they thought or higher. Yeah. One lady in the first row of my class said, this doesn't sound like me at all. This is not even close. And I went, that's odd. Yeah. I'd never heard that before, right? Yeah. So long story short, I dug into it. It turns out that she had her assistant she said, hey, look, I've got to go to this class. She thought this was just busy work. Take this assessment for me. It'll take you 15 minutes. You know me, right? And it proves that even though we work together every day, the assistant didn't know anything about what drove her boss. That's right. And the boss's results were completely inaccurate because somebody else was answering the questions for her.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen, we like to keep these to a half an hour. we also like to give more value than
I ever charge.
we ever charge for, right? So we always have a number of special offers that we want to give away on our webinars. Sometimes we do free prizes and swag. Maybe some of you have won some of that. We got a couple of really cool special offers today that we'll talk to you about.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little nervous for this part. Sometimes you give away
I go rogue.
a lot. You go rogue.
Hey, I'm a thinker.
But let's see what happens.
All right.
Wait.
The first thing we're giving away now, if you are a leader, you've got a team, okay, you're a manager, and you're just trying to figure out how I can make my team more cohesive, how I can bring them together, sharpen the saw, so to speak, as Covey would say, and just kind of bolster their spirits, right? Rally the team, marshal resources, get them on the same page. We offer a private team building workshop. Now, we limit this. We're doing this on September 7th. So first of all, the date has to work for you, okay? And it's about 45 minutes long. We limit this to 10 teams. So if you're a leader of a team and you want to bring your team to this, let us know, okay? We'll show you how you can do that. We're going to give free Motivators assessments to your group, up to 15 per team, and then we'll invite you to this private webinar. And you'll bring your results, and we'll walk you through a team report like we do in our training that we charge clients for all the time, okay? You're going to learn your team's motivational synergies, uniqueness, and caution. So if you're a leader or team manager, maybe you're a first-time manager and you're like, I don't know what to do. Write this down here. In a minute, I'm going to give you a QR code, okay?
That's pretty nice.
Pretty good one, right?
That's a good
right?
one.
Right?
That's a good one.
But wait, we've got something else. Because we got a pretty diverse group on this, right?
True.
Second, our summer of certification continues. So for those of you on this session who are trainers, HR folks, L&D folks, right, who are always responsible for creating solutions for the organization, we normally charge $4,000 for this, but you can get certified to be able to administer, debrief, train, and coach this. If you're a coach or a consultant, right, you want to bring this to your clients, you can certify for free.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I'm the chief revenue officer here, and I don't see revenue, but you know what? I'm going with it.
I'm the chief motivation officer.
You are.
Right? So we've got one coming up on the 17th and 18th. That's next week.
That one's almost full.
That one's full. We got a couple seats left, and then we've got some more seats in our September session. We do these virtually, 2 hours over 2 days, right? And we send you the recording and a bunch of other bells and whistles, and you could just go crazy with it in your organization. So we've got VIP seats available for those L&D, HR, coaches, and consultants, okay? So how do you get involved in either of these two offers? Take out your phone, scan this QR code, set up a quick 10-minute call with Brianna or Lance. Let us know which offer you want to take advantage of. We'll send you more details, get you more information. Again, there's no obligation. We want to just provide value. It's our life's mission to help people solve motivation. I think that this will be a home run.
Yeah, we always provide more value than we ever charge for. So I'm okay with this.
You're good? You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Their calendars will fill up quick, right? And again, it's first come, first serve. So this is a benefit to you for attending the webinar. Okay. You'll beat all the people who are waiting for the recording to the finish line here. Okay. Well, Lance, with that, I hope I think we're there. That's our webinar today. Always a fun time, right? It was fun digging back into some of those other tools that we've done, that we've used before, like personalities and strengths and things like that. So any final thoughts?
Oh, this was great. I always love these. I look forward to these so much. They go by so fast. I can't believe it's almost been 30 minutes, but here we are. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Anytime. We'll see you next month, everybody. We do these monthly. Join us in the future. If you've got any questions, reach out. Otherwise, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.